Hi, I am attorney Michael Ehline, and I'm here with Louis Hozlberg. I am in Los Angeles, California. He is in Miami, Florida, and we are both maritime law attorneys. And as part of our 10-minute lawyer series, we try to offer free information about things that regular people experience in their lives. And in this case, we both specialize in cruise ships. So we wanted to talk to you about some consumer issues that are of significant importance. So this is separate and apart from our work that we do for our law firm. We don't have any sponsors. This is free information that we're sharing because we want to help people. And our first topic of today has to do with this trip insurance that cruise lines sell people and third parties that the cruise lines work with sell people. And Louis and I wanted to talk to you about this because this is a real problem. It's sort of like people who buy rental car insurance and they think that they're covered, but they're really not, or they're covered for less. And in some cases, people might end up paying more for their policy than they can actually get back, if they get back anything at all. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this. So Louis, if you want to say anything more about yourself, go ahead. If not, let's get into it.
Hey, Michael, and thanks for having me back on. Just want to remind everyone that, yes, I am a maritime attorney in Miami, Florida. And as a part of my practice, I do represent cruise ship passengers. However, this is just a separate series where we're giving you, the listeners, more information about today's topic, which, as Michael explained, we're here to talk about travel insurance. So I'm sure for those of you who've ever booked a flight or a cruise, right after or during your booking, you were bombarded with all sorts of requests to add additional trip or travel insurance. And for those of you that have selected trip or travel insurance, you probably didn't read the fine print as to what it actually covered. So we're here today to talk to you about what is covered, what's not covered, and what you think may be covered, but in fact is very different if and when you need to go ahead and use your trip insurance.
Well, Louis, in this example that you sent me, this had to do with a flight delay and a man thinking that his insurance would cover all that. And I sort of took a look at it and it looked like, I guess he missed his flight or something. And so he had to get another flight to catch the cruise. So I guess I like these examples because not all cases are the same. And that's a kind of a nuanced situation. What do you have to say about that? It looks like he ended up not getting covered for this event.
So in our practice, we see this a lot, right? There are two types of trip insurance generally, right? There is what we call travel interruption insurance, where someone like this tries to go on a flight or even go on the cruise, and there's some issue, whether their car broke down or their flight didn't take off on time, where they were unable to board the vessel on time. And in that case, they're typically not going to be covered by the travel insurance, even if it's the travel insurance that you purchased from the cruise line. The other instance is somebody who, for whatever reason, either becomes injured or misses their cruise to get back on the ship in a foreign port and needs to be repatriated or medevaced, meaning they have to take an emergency flight, whether it's a commercial flight or there's even specialized flights with doctors on board, either a helicopter or a private plane that takes the passenger from whatever country or island they may be in back to the mainland.
And so the intent of the purchaser is that if something happens to them, if they get injured, that would be a covered event and they would just pay their deductible and that's it, right?
Well, that is typically what the purchaser thinks they're getting, but most
Okay.
of the time, especially in these countries, they're going to be asked upfront for their credit card or some form of payment, even though they've purchased insurance. And given the circumstances, for example, a catastrophic injury, it's very rare that you are in the mental state to say, wait a minute, I have insurance, I want to use that insurance. And instead, in an emergency situation, you're going to do whatever is necessary to get home. An option that I would point out to those listeners that have this option are your premium credit cards. So that would be things like your platinum or travel cards that have built-in insurance. So at the beginning of the segment, we referenced when you go on a rental car. So a rental car sometimes has built-in insurance. Sometimes you have to pay for rental car insurance. Well, some of these preferred or premium credit cards also include this type of insurance where if you need to be medically evacuated out of a country, it actually is included in the language of your credit card policy. Now, I will warn those users this is generally the highest level of credit card protection and therefore the most expensive, but that does exist. And if you are someone who carries those types of credit cards, at that point, travel insurance is probably redundant, if not completely unnecessary for you.
So would the insurer sort of try to treat your credit card as if it was the primary policy to avoid coverage?
In most cases, it's to your benefit to allow them to, first, because you're going to get a better service from your credit card company. And secondly, even if you paid for, let's say, the medical evacuation or just the commercial flight home and try to get reimbursed, many times for various nuances or technicalities, the travel insurance will deny your claim. And I've had clients call me who went on a cruise, weren't injured, but maybe they just didn't get back on board in time.
Right.
And they ultimately had to pay out of pocket and were unable to get any form of reimbursement from the travel insurance company.
So let me get this straight for the viewers. It sounds like you buy this policy, but then you have to pay for it out of your own pocket and then get reimbursed. Is that a fair statement?
That's typically what you'll see.
So you could see how, I mean, we know that insurance companies are notorious for always cheerfully paying claims, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that, in that you're very unlikely to get reimbursed, or at least fully reimbursed. There's always some technicality, some fine print that at the end of the day, you would have been better off putting the money that you spent on the travel insurance over the years in an account for that emergency day.
Is there anything that you could recommend for our viewers, perhaps through like their own homeowner's insurance or some similar reasonable facsimile that they could get without having to deal with the cruise lines?
So there is an option for third-party insurance. I don't endorse or recommend any specific company, but when you're using a third-party company, typically the options are more robust. I've even seen policies, for example, that offer COVID coverage. So if you got sick right before you were about to get on the boat, if you bought that specific policy, which included COVID or whatever illnesses, maybe you have a pre-existing condition, so you're aware of something, that could flare up or become an issue, then the option to you is broader if you were to use a third-party company.
That makes sense. And we're going to talk a little bit about a COVID case in a little while, where they didn't even, I think, need that insurance policy. It looks like the cruise line is on the hook for some stuff about COVID. So is there anything else that we can tell our viewers about trip insurance or finding ways to stay safe financially on cruises if you missed your cruise or you missed a boat for whatever reason, et cetera, et cetera?
The number one thing I would say is read the fine print. Don't just automatically opt in when the cruise line offers you a travel insurance policy with a click and agree, right? The most important thing there is to read what it is you're agreeing to and what are the benefits really. And if those benefits are what you were looking for, then you should be able to book with the cruise line. However, if you were to go and explore your third-party options, you might find either better prices or better coverage. So the most important thing, if you are someone who prefers to have travel insurance, is to really do your research and due diligence.
Okay. And with that being said, I just want to remind all of our viewers to like and subscribe, to check out the description of the video so you can contact Lewis and, add his Twitter and everything so you can get in touch with him, and put any questions that you have in the comments about this or any future topics that you'd like us to discuss. It's not just cruise ship. We can talk about fisherman cases, people getting lost at sea on a jet ski rental, whatever it might be. We want to talk about things that aren't like cookie cutter things. We want to talk about things that normal people experience, like some of the news stories that we've discussed. So with that being said, I'd like to close up. If you have anything else to say, I think we're good to go, Lewis.
Now, thanks again, Mike, for having me on.
Awesome.